the sermon talkbacks. We started in 2021. Actually, it was the first one, so this is now the fourth one. And the reason is because I often get a lot of questions and wrestling, and it was an opportunity to create space for us to really think reflectively, to hear from you about some of the messages that came out of, specifically I'm focusing on the writings that I've done, although, as you know, we thematically try to draw messages in connected to all the rabbis that are offering. But today I really wanted to first focus, and just to know that those who are joining us on live stream, we welcome you. You're going to have the option in your chat if you have some questions. The questions will be fed to me directly, and so then I can answer them. We're going to try to do what we can. I will not go past 2:20 because we want to give you a few minutes before we enter into Contemporary Confessions, which, if you haven't been, is wonderful. It's really rich with our musicians. It's incredible. It's in the sanctuary. It's a good breather before we enter into our afternoon services. So let me get started a little bit, and then it's going to be an really open dialogue for you. I have some generative questions that I can offer, but knowing you're going to give me questions, and you're going to give me some of your thoughts, and that's great. So I want you to do that. So instead of me outlining each of the sermons that you probably heard already or have already listened to, what I did was I just paraphrased the ideas, the summaries of each of the two. So you have it. I'm not going to go through them, but I want to focus really what's on the second page, which is the crossovers and the points of connection that I tried to draw for this High Holy Days. And it's really important to know that I don't know about other rabbis, but when I'm thinking about High Holy Days, I'm starting to think about it in June. It's crazy, and we start planning for High Holy Days in June, and no matter if everybody says, oh, they're late this year, or they're early this year, for the clergy, they're never really on time. They're just there, right? We just have to deal with them. And I have several colleagues that are here. I have rabbis and cantors, and they know they've been through this. They know the deal. So I'm preaching the choir a little bit, I know here, but I started thinking about them, and for me, every year brings wrestling. And in all honesty, I'm not finished with it until the day or two before, because the world is constantly changing. When 2 days ago, when the 20-point plan was unveiled, and it was 2 days before Kol Nidre, I'm on different WhatsApp chats with many rabbis, and rabbis like to pontificate. And believe it or not, I'm very silent on these because I don't know who has the time to do that, but it seems like the same 10 voices are always the ones who are pontificating. And they're freaking out. Like, what are we going to do? Are we going to have to change our sermons? And trying to, well, what's going to be relevant? And I'm like, and I finally wrote, and I said, if the words are coming from your heart, it's going to touch the heart of the people that you're with. So leave your words and trust your gut. That's what I said. That seemed to get a lot of emoji applause, so that was good. So I want to review some of these key themes that came up, and then kind of really put the questions out to you. And really, this is a feedback of like what came up for you. If there was something in it that is something that I mentioned that was unclear, or that you want more clarification, or that you may disagree with, or that you may wrestle with, that's what this time is about, to hear from each of you. So, and not to keep you from falling asleep. It's for you to keep you, that too, but to keep you engaged. So let's look at the first one, humility and rehumanizing, right? The first one, some people have asked me already, Rabbi, why did you decide to put the rehumanizing one on Rosh Hashanah and not on, and like, why didn't you reverse them? And my very clear gut was that the experiences and the communications I was receiving from you that was the message that needed to enter the foundation of High Holy Days. It was the world feels like it's on fire, and I've been saying that for many years already. I don't know why. Every year feels newer. It feels like the embers are not yet. It's still kindling in some ways, and so, but it looks new every time. It looks new. So, and I kind of have this image of a brush fire in one area, and then it may calm down, and then there's something else that started over in this area. I hate to say fire in San Diego and Southern California, but you know what I mean? You know, not saying it for that, but I'm saying it for the idea of what it is. So humility and rehumanizing. So both of these sermons really stress the idea of humility, and whether they're facing our nervous systems, which is what I talked about on Rosh Hashanah, or admitting broken promises, like and complex truths. We know that the world we're living in is highly complex and complicated and exhausting. And what I wanted to do was really give us context for identifying and naming it. If we don't name the complexity of the world that we're living in, I don't believe we can. You cannot name what you cannot name what you can't see, or what if you don't name it, it tends not to exist. Sometimes we throw it away, or we kick it down the road. But if we're trying to really focus ourselves on the work, and the work is our personal work, because that's the only work that I know I do in our house, that Nicole does, that we do, that we impart on our kids to try to do, and the work that I pastor with to each of you. And if you've been with me in pastoral sessions, you know I've said, yeah, this is the tough work. It's really tough. So humility is tough. It is really, really, really hard. Not because that you may say, well, I don't have an ego. First of all, everybody has an ego. It's if your ego is in check or not. And that is real, and there's healthy ego, and there's ego around the ideas that you think you cannot do the work, or you cannot support the work, or you cannot do your part to heal it. That's the ego that I'm talking about. Don't think of ego as like this idea that it's just about me and only me. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how are you going to give yourself space and grace to do the work in the world that's needed right now. That's what I'm referring to in both of the sermons, in that way. Brokenness is sacred. I've shared this kind of theme. You know, they always say rabbis have one sermon. And so I think you know my sermon by now, which is you do the footwork, and then you're provided for. That's been my sermon for 21 years, has been you do the work, and then we are provided for. And it doesn't mean that bad shit doesn't happen, right? It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean tough things aren't there. They are. I'm not trying to move us to a place of Gan Eden, of the Garden of Eden. I'm trying to give us practical ways to grab onto the tangible, hard things that we're dealing with in life today. Hope is practice, not prediction. When Rosh Hashanah calls hope a discipline of rehumanizing, Kol Nidre, I called hope a discipline of showing up where despair is easier. And both, I tried to frame hope as action, right? Hope isn't this idea. Rabbi Gimbel touched upon it today, right? It isn't this idea. It's an action. It's not something you think. The state of Israel wasn't created because it was a hope. That's the tikvah. That's the anthem. But it was created because there were people who wanted to work to establish it. And there are reasons why there are advances. I always use Israeli society, and take it out of the context of war right now. You think back to the good old days when only rockets were dropping from Gaza, and it's so sad to say, but when you think about it, you think about the ingenuity, you think about the context, you think about how far Israel innovation has come. This little country the size of New Jersey with a population of 10 million is somehow creating more world-renowned high-tech individuals and companies per capita than anywhere else besides the United States. It's quite amazing. And so hope is a practice and an action. Community is workshop. This is very clear. I think this is a very clear statement. I don't even think I need to expand upon it more. If we are to do the work, then Beth Israel has to be the laboratory from which we do it. And what I mean by that is that it doesn't mean we don't bicker. Before High Holy Days, there was a lot of bickering, I can tell you. Among the staff, among people, among teachers who are feeling tensions, like just because of the year. And this actually becomes the container for a lot of people's service, right? We become the container. People come here, they feel, I'm tired, I'm exhausted by the world, help me. Or they act out because they feel safe here. And you know, we always tell our children act out the most around usually their parents where they feel the safest, or the individuals that they feel safest in. So this is the case here. People act out here, and I'm not always saying in bad ways, I'm saying in beautiful ways, but because they feel safe. But we have to do more. There's more that has to be done because we're getting good samplings, courageous conversations, those initiatives. They're very good, and they've really moved people into healthy dialogue spaces and constructive dialogue spaces. But how do we take it a step further? And I don't have an answer right now, and if any of you do during this session, I'm going to write it down, so I'm very excited. But I don't know if we have the answer today. But the goal is that I look at our Beth Israel community as a place that is going to be the laboratory and the workshop where we continue to break down these barriers, where people can come in, and let me tell you, we have people all across the political spectrum in our community. We have people all across the socioeconomic spectrum. There are Jews of color. We have Jews by choice. We have all individuals who come from their own marginalized communities and societies. And there are those who, as Jews in general, as a mainstream here, as a minority out there, still feel that something is off, right? So we have to be the laboratory that creates the space and the safe space where people can say, I'm really having a shitty day, but I don't want to but I know this is the place where I can voice my thoughts and concerns without feeling like I'm going to be ostracized. And that's really where we strive to do that, and I think we do it well. I think we could do it better. So this is the Yom Kippur for me is about looking at our community and how we could do things even stronger and better. And the last one is moral responsibility. So Rosh Hashanah spoke to how we respond to others' humanity, right? I talked about the guy who spit in front of me and called me an effing Jew while I was walking down the street in downtown San Diego with my kippah on. How I didn't give him the satisfaction of walking away and just saying it, but he had to look me straight in the eyes after I passed him and looked him right in the face. And I stared at him. Not as uncomfortable as I stared with the other clergy that I had mentioned at the Faith Leaders Retreat, where it was 10 seconds staring. That was uncomfortable. So, but this was more about how we respond to another person's humanity or inhumanity, because that's a big piece of the world we're living in today. We see people's inhumanity, and we feel involuntarily sometimes that we have to respond to their inhumanity. And I'm here, and I hope that the messages I was trying to focus on are saying we actually have tools and ways that we can respond that don't require us to be tit for tat, that don't require us to be responding to someone's dehumanization of you, or someone else. There are other tools that we can employ that help us move beyond the barrier of that. So that's really important. So, and on Kol Nidre last night was about inherent vows. I talked about Israel, and Israel is my friend Rabbi Angela Buckdahl in Central Synagogue, who's had over 100,000 views in her own sermon on Rosh Hashanah. It's crazy. We were actually talking about this summer, how we were going to, we were in this retreat, the retreat I talked about, we were together, and we were talking about how we're going to approach Israel. And she said, I'm really scared to talk about Israel. And she said, I think I'm going to name that I'm scared. And she did. That was the first thing that came up in her sermon, which was quite amazing. And that's not my language, it's her language, it's not how I tend to preach, but because it doesn't scare me. But I don't have any fear about talking about things that I feel that are my truth. Like, they're my truth. I'm not asking you to hold on to my truth. I'm asking you to hear my truth, and I have the platform. So I get to utilize that. No, that's healthy ego, right? That's it. But it's really, that's how it works. So we have freedom in the pulpit. So it's not, I'm not gonna go and say something that I don't mean. I'm gonna say exactly what I mean. But I'm looking to honor people's voices while being truthful to my own, and honoring your voice and saying you have a space here and you have a place. And that's really the key here, because that's the moral responsibility I'm speaking about. So I really want to open it up now. This is really, I'll start the question off for you, which is what was something out of the past, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, in these moments that there was these talks that sparked something for you? That was what we call chiddush, something new, something interesting, anything. And we have, the mics are here so we can hear. It's a smaller room so we can go around. Wendy, go ahead. Introduce yourself when you stand, if you can stand up, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Wendy Levy-Batterson. What really struck me was today when the gentleman passed out or semi-collapsed, and we all sang for his health. And I realized, even though I woke up this morning to bad news and didn't want to leave my house, and then I said, Natanya pushed me to come be in community, and I realized what a strong, beautiful community we are, and how we came together to sing him. And what better place, God forbid he would have collapsed at home by himself, but he collapsed where we could get him help and where he could feel his community wrap their arms around him. So I don't know if that was what you were looking for, but that's what you inspired me to say.
It didn't go to my sermon, but it's okay. No, but I know. No, it was beautiful. No, and really, that was a very proud moment for me as leading this community, because it really, all of you were just like, okay, let's just be here. We're present. Let's give the time and space that's needed. Let's figure it out. And our community came together. I mean, when Rabbi Gimbel asked for a medical professional, I said half the group is going to stand up, half the congregation, which they did. But we know we have protocols. There are set protocols, but also that's another area where we could fine tune a little bit. But also remember, but this is how I can just tell you from the back end. This is how it came together, and kind of how we pivoted, as Rabbi Gimbel taught us this morning. So it was very apropos. He was about to give a sermon. He was ready, remember? And then we stopped. I went over to make sure that this gentleman was okay, and make sure that everything was taken care of. I, in my head, knew that the paramedics were on their way, so I knew that any interruption is going to disrupt the service. And so then we had to make a quick pivot on how we're going to figure out what's the next step. Like, what are we going to do? What can we do liturgically that will help us hold this moment? So Amisha Berach seemed okay, and that was good. And then we still were, the paramedics were not there, and we had to, it was beautiful. Everybody came together. And then there was another moment where, okay, we said, this is the section. I think the Al-Chet, the Shamnu would be very good here. But remember, it's not only just the clergy on the bima saying, hey, we're going to switch to this. We have to coordinate with the AV. We have to coordinate with the musicians. We have to coordinate with the choirs. It's an operation. So it's not a that one pivot takes a community, and the community was there, and that was beautiful. So this is your community. This is what your community does. When moments come, they stand up. So, Janice, go ahead. No, it's not for you. It's for also the live stream.
All right. Well, I'm Janice Alper, and I don't recall your name?
Wendy.
Wendy, okay. What I was going to say, what Wendy said connects with what I was going to say. Because what I took away from the Rosh Hashanah sermon was connectedness. And you know how I'm here in this chapel every single week, and it's my community. And I just turned to page 6 of your sermon, and you gave us the steps of how to rehumanize ourselves. And today you set an example of that, Rabbi, and I commend you for that. But I think it's most important that we all come here and we look in each other's eyes and we greet each other, whether we know each other or not. And so I took this away from you. And it ties in with what you did last night, is how do I examine my life and see what vows I've taken, what I need to let go, and what new vows I might have to take. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that. This is the vows. The vows are, I call them what was the language I used? Nobody can quote my sermon already? I don't understand. No, the marrow of Jewish belief, because their vows are centerpieces of ritual, they're centerpieces of rabbinic discourse, and they hold us to certain expectations, but we often fall short of them, right? And the mitzvot are established, the 613 mitzvot and commandments are established in the Torah, not because, certainly today, not as a sacrificial movement can we actualize all of them, but they're there because they're set for us to strive towards them. They set us with intention, right? I look at mitzvot as intentional. Like, they're there for us to gain access to understand how this broader community connects with me personally. What's my responsibility in that community? How do I breathe, take moments where I messed up and take a pause and a breath? I am the first one to say that I am not the easiest to take a pause and a breath at times. And sometimes I'm better than others. Sometimes, like today, there was a great example. Could have been frantic, could have been whatever. It was very calm, right? Because those are situations that I feel more comfortable in. But when it comes to something probably a little more intimate for me, then that is something that may take me more time to sit with, and I may react faster. And so the vows are about what doesn't work for us and to reimagine what can be, right? And that's what I was talking about. I'll get to you in 1 second, I promise. Was talking about for Israel. I speak to so many people in our community that have different understandings, interpretations, their own experiences in the region, and they span the gamut, right? So I'm not looking in that moment, as I did last night, to say this is the one way I think of it, but I say, don't step away. Vows are critical because it's about the possibility of letting go what's not working and reimagining what can work and holding those. And when you can't hold on to something that feels tangible enough, like if I can't hold on to the fact that I can't believe we're still 2 years into a war in Gaza, that's a real thing for me. That is a painful, horrible, horrific thing that I'm holding in my heart while being a staunch Zionist. Horrible, horrible. But they can both exist. They can both exist in ways that some people haven't figured out how to marry or wed. And I understand that when you sit in the binaries, our government does it. We sit, I'm not talking about our current, I'm talking about like in politics, we see it. When people sit in the binaries on one side or the other, you think those are the winners? They're never gonna win. Because it's going to be the people who are operating in the middle eventually, long term, that I think are going to eventually move us forward. But people feel safe when they come into binaries. And the idea of that, for me, last night was about erasing the binaries and trying to say and reset and say, we have some intentionality to work on with our talk, education, understanding of Israel, and really understanding that there is so much goodness here, but it is so darkened right now with all that is going on that it's so hard to see through the fire that is happening. But remember what fire creates. Fire, sometimes when fires are controlled, they're set up in controlled areas in order so that the brush can be cleared and rejuvenation can grow again. So when you have the possibility of when we see a fire, we sometimes ignite ourselves to to respond. And we see it on social media all the time. I made the mistake of going on to X last week, which I never do. I really don't do. It's not my social media wheelhouse. It's not. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not on. I don't go on it. But I made the mistake, and I call it a mistake because for me it was a mistake. It is a toxic, poisonous place to be. If you ever want to feel negative about yourself or about anybody else in society, just spend 5 minutes on X. You'll be fine. You'll fulfill your mission because that's all you need. But it is toxic. It was toxic for me. If it works for other people, call Kavod. It's not my thing. I can't get on there because it's not. The algorithm has beaten me. The algorithm has beaten me, and it knows my story, and it has figured me out in a way that isn't working right now, and so I have to take a pause from it because that's not where I want to live in my life. And that is what about the resetting. I see hands. We're going to go. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Karen Tuvia. What really hit me about the sermon last night was that I've been struggling with, I love Israel. Israel's a part of my heart, so deep. But I've been struggling about, the genocide that's happening, and I think you brought it.
No. There's no.
Wrong
we
word.
don't.
Wrong
this
word.
is not,
Sorry.
Not a space. Not a space.
And I'm not being political. I'm just saying you gave me the words to defend Israel. For me to say to people, and to be strong for Israel. That's. I'm sorry, I used the wrong word.
No,
I'm sorry
beautiful.
about that.
That's what the point is. The point is, and people react to language, and I want to be very clear. No, you're good. You're good. You're totally good. I appreciate what you're saying. What you're saying is, you're someone who loves Israel, and who loves her, and is trying to figure out how to reconcile what's going on right now with the realities on the ground and where we are. Right? Me too. Me too. And that part of the writing was cathartic. Both of them were very cathartic. I only write what I want to teach myself also. So I like where I want to go with it. I'm like, what do I want the community to learn? What can I learn deeper? It's not about like what I think I know. It's actually what I don't know, and I want to learn myself. So often when I'm writing, it's about something I'm looking to learn about and looking to find in myself. And that's really important because I don't know how many of my colleagues do that. I think a number of them do, but I just don't know. That's always been my writing process, has been like, how can I find something that speaks to me deeper? So I don't want us to be reactionary. The whole point is not to be reactionary to words. Words are just words. And I respond to the heart. So that's the real space. I respond to energy. And that is, in the energy here, I do. You can, whatever. And sometimes words. Sometimes I do respond to words. If you're on the 5 and you cross me without a signal, you're going to get words. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ronnie Udoff, and I really appreciate this, these talking points that you gave us from your Rosh Hashanah sermon.
Yeah.
And I want to talk. These are great macro concepts that I'm going to have to spend some more time digging deeper into. But when you described the airport dad, I'm the airport mom, so I understood that. When you described the man who called you an effing Jew on the street, I stopped there. I didn't hear another word of your sermon, so I'm really happy to be able to revisit it here. And my question is, if you knew that was going to happen to you again,
Yeah.
how would you have responded? And how can we respond to things? Because I want to zoom down more
Sure.
into a micro
Yeah.
situation. How can we use our Jewish values to respond in a humanized way to things like this, about Israel or about ourselves?
Sure. Great question. Thank you. And I'm sorry that it paralyzed you. It was supposed to be, I always throw in something that throws people. That's an important piece of how I write. But it's also, it was true. Like, it was very real. And I think for me, in that moment and moving forward, which is what we're talking about, is really about how do you take a breath and a pause. In that moment, I took a breath because I wasn't at the, when you hear something but you're not sure exactly you heard it correctly? I thought I heard it, but I wasn't sure, but then I was sure. Like, I was like, oh, no, he did say it. He did. So, and it was also his look, like when he passed me, his look of disgust, or something like that. And so the first thing I thought of in that moment when I took a pause, and it took me about, the pause was like 3 seconds. It wasn't like a big pause, but because he was walking, but slowly. I said, what are my better angels going to do in this moment that I don't want to create an altercation, which is going to be exactly what he would want. In a couple of seconds, I was able to rationalize that. And then I passed him, because I'm a fast New York walker, and I passed him. And I looked up he was like this tall, and he was like 2 inches taller than me. And I looked up at him, and I stared at him with like this look of like, who the hell do you think you are? Like, in that sense, right? But, the what?
Demonstration, please.
Okay, sure. So, I looked, and he got it. He, whether or not he could care less, that's not the point. It wasn't about my satisfaction over his reaction. That I didn't care about. I wanted to prove for myself that I could say what I needed, that I could do what I needed to do, and it didn't need to be words. There was no words exchanged. I exchanged no words. I stood, he was walking, I walked this, I turned to him like this, he was still walking, I looked him straight in the eye for like 3 or 4 seconds, and he stopped. So I got him to stop, and then I kept walking. And that was enough for that moment. Now, I don't know what if the person was volatile. Like, I don't know. He could have been dangerous. I have no idea. Like, I think it's a hard question to answer in terms of the context of like individuals. Like, I'm pretty active and virile and strong, and so I don't back away from certain things. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know, but I feel that we have to give ourselves. We sometimes, before we press send, think about before you press send. That's how I think today, how I always think. Every piece of digital imprint or writing that I do, I know will be in the ethers forever. It will never get erased. There is no way it's going to get erased from everybody or everything. So I know every time I write something, every time I say something, it's exactly what I mean in that moment. It's exactly what I wanted to say. And it's something, maybe I'll have evolved from that moment 5 years from now and I would have said it differently. But in that moment, at that time, I have no regrets for what I write. So in that moment. But that it has to be really important to understand, like, if you're going to have if you're going to really think through your heart around what you want to say in response to someone, and I don't say in reaction, I say in response, because we create the reaction. The other person doesn't. We choose to react, or we can choose to pause, and we can choose to respond. And that's what I chose in that moment, was to respond, not to react. I could have reacted. I could have went up to him, I could have cursed him out, I could have done all the things that I could have. And then, I don't want to be on the San Diego Union Tribune in that way. I don't want another Jew and a Jewish leader in the community be on the news. But I didn't feel that in my heart. I wasn't even feeling that. I was just feeling like, who is this guy that thinks he could do that? No, not at all. He's not going to let that. I'm not going to let him get me like that. That's not going to happen. I know we have other hands up.
Yeah, but I have the mic, though.
Oh, the hardest questions. Okay, go ahead.
Can I expound on what you said? I don't have a question.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, because I want to answer Ronnie's question a little bit even more specifically. Oh, I'm Nicole Nevarez.
My wife.
So for me, this whole idea of rehumanizing, I would give a different language. It's his sermon. Is really about like the moment that just happened here when somebody used a word that is viscerally disturbing to other people, right? Which is to have the reaction. It's never, ever, ever to not have the response, but then to lean into that and say, what is this trying to tell me? And what opportunity does it give me for how I want to show up in the world? So if I have a visceral response to something, I am feeling some sense of threat. That word feels super threatening for people. For some people. It doesn't for me. It does for a lot of people. And so what can I do with that reaction? And you saw how quickly the amount of noise in the room, that's your body responding. And so for me, when I'm able, and I'm not always able because I'm a human, if I can get curious, and I'll just share a super quick story of being catcalled on the street in New York City one day, and I was so agitated about something, I was trying to meet him at a restaurant, and I couldn't, it's a long story, ask me later. So I was already super hyper agitated, and this guy was in my face, and I usually would have ignored it and responded. But my response was a question, like, what is that? And he turned, and we ended up in dialogue about how we treat women. So, because he was like, my grandmother taught me to treat women with respect. I was like, that's great, you just didn't do that. And the next time that he does that, I have to believe that like something will zing. So for me, a lot of it is sitting in curiosity and also in compassion that like anybody who is so angry is in pain. They are disconnected from the divine. And the very last thing I'll say is also, I don't want to engage, like that guy that spit at you, you're not teaching him anything. You knew that, right? But you're not teaching him anything. I want to engage where I can make impact. I want to show up with love where I can make impact and not get into it with the people who I'm never going to get anywhere because it feels good to be angry and fight. But like, for what? It takes away from me.
They have their hands up.
I'm probably not allowed to take over the room with my answer, but lots of other people I'm sure have wise things to say.
She's available at any point. You can talk to her. She's also a consultant, so you can hire her too. So that's good. So beautiful. Go ahead. We're coming around.
I'm going to disagree with what Nicole just said.
Okay.
I think you absolutely taught him a lesson. And I think your reaction was rehumanizing. He did that to dehumanize you. And he did that because in his eyes, you, all of us, have already been dehumanized. And your reaction, connecting with him saying, through your behavior, that you are a human being, that you are not, I mean, the anti-Semitism is marked by not engagement for the purpose of what's being said, but you don't accuse the Jew of theft because you think they stole something. You accuse the Jew of theft to watch them turn out their pockets, right? He did that to you not to break you, to make you respond, and you didn't. And by not doing it, you rehumanized. The word genocide, the fact that we're taught that it's, and I apologize, I don't mean this to be a direct attack or anything, that word was being bandied about on October 8th. That word was being bandied about and was injected into the conversation in order to get a reaction. Because it's I mean, by any established definition, it does not apply, and we can have a conversation. I'm not looking to get into that conversation, but it was created, that it started. I'm not talking about what happened since then, but it started as an act of anti-Semitism. It was injected into this conversation before any bullet flew from Israel and into Gaza from October 7th forward. And that's where, and it was used for a purpose to force us to turn out our pockets. And that's my perspective anyway.
I appreciate that. I appreciate, Nicole and I don't know, we agree on a lot, we don't always agree on everything, so it's okay. We have different ways of approach on this. But I did feel in that moment, I agree with you, I was rehumanizing, I was acting in that mode of rehumanizing. And yes, language, I'm gonna call it language instead of using the word right now, because people forget origins of language, and it creates, and it builds a life of its own. And that, I just want to get
what I should say is language has power, words have meaning, and how we react to them, et cetera.
And that's the piece. And I think what Nicole was pointing to, where I really do agree very wholeheartedly, is like how we choose to react to that is the key, right? And how we choose to respond is the key. We're going, I'm going to get you out. We're going. You're next, and then you're next. I promise. Go ahead.
I appreciated your comments. Well, can you tell us your name? Stephen. Okay. I'm Ronnie, another Ronnie. And I have two things I want to ask. One of them is whether what happened changed how and when you wear a kippah. And no. Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay, let
I'll
me
tell
just...
you the reason. I actually mentioned in the sermon, I don't usually wear a kippah outside this campus, or when I'm not in a ritual setting, or if I'm not studying. So it's like, that's when I wear a kippah. I am not typically out in the streets with a kippah. It happened that I come from here to meetings all over San Diego all the time, and sometimes I forget that my kippah is on it. That's why even, in fact, you reminded me, and I forgot until just now, that the first thing I did when I checked his words in my head was check my head for my kippah. Oh. That's the reaction that I had. So that was really interesting. Thank you. So that was something that just came to me.
In a way, one would think it might make you want to wear it more often for education purposes.
I have other reasons I don't want to wear it more often. It has nothing to do with anti-Semitism.
It's to show your full head of hair.
Yeah, but it has nothing to do. It's like, it's about, for me, a kippah is attached to the idea of study and learning. And for me, this is the place of studying and learning. So that's why I'm always wearing it, because I'm always interactive in that. And also in ritual, where I am. Outside of that, I feel, for me, it's not necessary. I understand why people do it, but just for me, that was never my.
Well, this is pertinent to what you and Nicole said, in that you, between reaction and response, to pause and wait before you hit send. How do you do that?
How do you pause and wait? Oh, that takes a lot of practice and a lot of therapy and a lot of coaching. And a really important partner and spouse who can really call you on your crap. It's really, really good. Like, all of that works together beautifully. But it's imperfect, right? It's imperfect, but it's a practice. It's like anything. When I tell students, I say everything's a discipline, everything's a practice. If you want to work at something, you want to get better at something, what do? You practice, right? Like, that's it. Cultivating that practice. People think it's not. It actually is a discipline. It is a practice if you react one way and you're trying to do something different, you actively have to work at it. Like, there's no way not to. You can't just unlearn that pattern of behavior just by saying, I'm going to undo it. My father said he stopped smoking like this. I said, you're lying. There's no way, And there are some people that can do that. I know there are people in the world that can shift and refocus themselves, but I believe it's a muscle. It's a spiritual muscle that we have to develop over and over and over again. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll try to be kind of quick. So two
Introduce
things.
yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Sandra Kaufman. Thank you. One, just about words and facts, if I may. You mentioned October 8th and that being an act of anti-Semitism. If you read what Hamas's intention was, which I would hope everybody in this room has done, it was not just an act of anti-Semitism. They said they were trying to destroy Israel, wipe it out, and Hamas charter says Jews worldwide. But I had an interaction the other day, shocking. I'm interested if you would have any suggestions. I always thought that if it was kind of pre-Holocaust times again, that I would speak up and not just let all the misinformation happen and the propaganda, and that you would speak up. So the other day I complimented a woman. She was wearing a gold necklace, and it was in the shape of Israel.
Yeah.
So I complimented her. I said, "Oh, so that's Israel." She said, "No, it's Palestine." First of all, it was at my place of work. I manage a hotel. I was like, I guess I can't say a word. But if I was not at a place of work, I mean, I just was so stunned. Do you feel we have a moral imperative to speak up? Do you walk away? What would you do?
So those are really hard. Those are really hard situations and scenarios. I think it's important to understand that we live in very complex, very intersectional spaces and places and times, and that even though I say that people stick to binaries, the binaries seem to be mixed up, right? From my perch, right? I'm looking at it, I see it very differently. Because I have so much experience and time and relationship in the region, I understand it maybe a little differently than someone else does. But I don't have a lived experience of an Israeli or someone that lives in Gaza either. I don't have that lived experience, so I can't possibly understand it. When people that don't have any understanding use their own language because they heard it on a TikTok or they heard it on a social media feed, that's where it gets complicated, but you don't know that person's lived experience regardless of where it came from. So for me, I probably wouldn't even, there's nothing to react to in that response. I would just, no, it's Palestine. Okay, well, that's your belief. It's not my factual understanding, you know? It's not, you know? It's the same way some airlines quietly remove Israel off their maps, and they don't say anything except Palestinian territory is on them anymore. So that happens. Like, well, that's an organization, a company. You can write to them. You can do the footwork. But in that case, that for me is something different. But this is a person who is just like, I wear these every day. I don't go around without them. It has, you know, this is for the hostages. I haven't taken it off in 2 years, with the exception of 1 or 2 days, and I'm not taking it off until the hostages are back. And this is usually a yellow ribbon, but this one has the Israeli flag on it. It was given to me by someone who is at Nova, who is rescued. And the understanding is, like, when I see this, some people look at it and they'll give me a look, right? And there's nothing to say to their look, because they have their own lived experience and they have their own understanding and pain, and mine isn't to start correcting all the people in the world I'm looking to engage in people who are really willing to engage. I'm not looking to be with people on the binaries who are going to say, you know, Jews are evil and I hate them. Okay, that's what you believe? Go off and do your thing. Like, I'm not in that space to hold their pain. There's too much pain that we have to hold with one another. I don't need to be exhausted by someone else's pain who's going to dehumanize me. So I'm not willing to be in that space. So that's where I would leave that. Go ahead, Steve, and then Shayna. Go ahead. We're getting there, I promise. I see everybody.
My name is Steve Levine, and I've been a Zionist for my entire life. It was I wasn't given a choice. And I've chosen to be a Zionist for my entire life. I met my wife while studying in Israel. My wife spends a majority of her time doing things for the state of Israel and for Hadassah Hospital. And I am, for the first time in my life, suffering from a conflict of conscience about Israel and what's going on in Israel and what's going on the West Bank and what's going on in Gaza. And I have never felt this way before. And I'm thinking about this idea of communities workshop. And I am not nearly as good at thinking about these things as you are, or even more so Nicole. But I think it would, but I do think that it may not be as much community as workshop, but maybe workshop for the community. Maybe we actually, some kind of a workshop, I don't know what it would be, to help people as a group think through these issues, because I can't figure out what to do. And it's consuming a lot of my mental energy. I'm sitting in services today, and I'm actually thinking about it a lot. It's not really what I want to be thinking about today. And I think that maybe it would help to try to clarify some of these issues as a group. But I also know that would be extremely dangerous and difficult. And so it's just something for you all to think about, I think.
Have you done the Courageous Conversations series or spaces? The Our Courageous Conversations series or spaces, have you done those?
No.
So one of the amazing things that we have done, the first one was on anti-racism that I did when I came here in 2020. And then this past year, Rabbi Ackerman Hirsch and Rachel Wegner, who's a board member and a major educator and facilitator who works for the County Office of Education, they facilitated with 14 congregants Courageous Conversation Space. And from people with all different backgrounds and ideologies and understandings, and created the language and the tools. And did anybody here take any of the recent one? You took the recent one? And am I describing it correctly? Okay. So we actually are, and we're continuing them. So there are some spaces. You may be talking more about tools also, like about how we think critically about these issues, and there's some emotion element to it too. But the Courageous Conversations pieces were the series were created intentionally for this kind of wrestling. So we're going to be doing them again because the wrestling isn't going away. So we're going to be focused on it. But we can talk more about the idea if you have more ideas about that.
I think that would be great. By education, by my work, I have a lot of experience. I have the tools to think about these issues, at least legally, having practiced international law. But thinking about whether something's a genocide or not doesn't even get you anywhere, really.
Yeah.
It doesn't get me anywhere in dealing with the moral, ethical problems of what's going on.
Yeah. No, it's a much more expansive issue.
And so I don't know what, maybe it is tools, I just don't know what those tools would be. There's got to be a way to approach this that, I don't know.
So more to come on that, but you're heard and seen for sure. I hear you, and that's the work. That's the laboratory work that I'm talking about that we need to continue. Shana.
Thank you, and really appreciate, Steve, what you shared, because I think a lot of us are sitting in that space, right? And every day our understanding shifts and changes, and what we thought we knew yesterday feels really different today. So I was so happy to hear the message of hope as a practice, not prediction. I was hoping you would have said it a year ago, and I was glad that it came a few weeks ago, because it is a practice. It is how we get ourselves unstuck and unparalyzed when we're feeling all of the pain that we're all clearly feeling. And I think, for me, because I've been cultivating this practice, so much of it comes with listening, right? And to the point that you just made around really being curious about other people's lived experiences, which doesn't take away from what I know and what I've lived. But I've found that when I can do that, it allows me to love more, right? To be kinder, more compassionate, to rehumanize, right? Like all of those things, but it requires a lot of intentionality and a lot of practice, and the curiosity that maybe someone else's experience and existence is different. The words they might use might be hurtful to me, but the way I understand it may be different from how they understand it.
100%. I love that. It's beautiful. Last year I did one sermon on lean in with curiosity. It was the post October 7th. And the idea was, and thinking about what Shane is saying and then building off of what Steve's saying, thinking about your comment before, I'm almost thinking, like you asked about what would you do in approach. And I think I probably now, just thinking about it, I probably would have asked her, tell me more about what you know about the region, to solicit some understanding of hers, like to get more awareness. Because if I go into reaction mode, I shut down. There's no possibility, and that's what we see. Like we watch it. I watch it. That's why 5 minutes on X and I was out, because I was watching and people were just cursing at each other and like, you're as stupid as this and you're this. And I'm like, why is this good for humanity? Well, I don't understand it. Like, how is this bettering us as human beings, right? And that to me, so I may lean in just and thinking about that piece. So
And I
thank
have
you.
one question, because one of the things you mentioned
you.
at Rosh Hashanah was the idea of let them and then let me. So
Yes.
I'm wondering if you can speak to that
Yes.
and how we do that more.
We're gonna go about 5 or 6 more minutes. Are you okay? And then and then I'll stay a few more minutes if people want to go. I know we have it. So you're asking about, so let them and let me, you know that even though that's a more modern-esque, scenario, I'm gonna frame it in Jewish language, if that's okay, if you don't mind. Are you okay with that? Okay. So the language is actually Simsum. And what that means is that when the world was created, that there was this understanding that God took up so much space and needed to contract. And the idea of contraction is Simsum. And when you build in Simsum, you make contraction, you make space for the other. And so there has to be a delicate balance of that. So for me, it's about the let them and let me is a few years before that. See, one rabbi has one sermon. So before that, I don't know if you remember, a couple years ago, I gave a sermon where I joked about the language that Nicole and I use sometimes, bless him, change me. Right? Like we do that, like, bless this person and change it. Bless this person, change me. Right? And so the idea is not foreign from that, but the concept is about taking up less space so that you're able to apply more energy to the listening and the hearing. So it's about who's in front of you in the moment, who's speaking to you. It's also about your awareness that, do I take up too much space? That's really important. And that for me is a big piece of this. Like, you'll notice that the rabbis all have, I'm talking about High Holy Day, like sermon time. I'm talking about, but like, you notice that there's equal space with sharing on the bima and doing and speaking. It's because it's really important for everybody to have their space and to be seen. And it's also important for everybody who is wanting, and I'm not talking about the people who like want to be seen, but because they've made their life that. I'm talking about people who are just asking for something, to hear something, to understand. And so it gives us a little more pause, a sacred pause to say, can I take up less space and give them a little more space in that moment? It doesn't have to be forever. It's in that moment, right? You're talking about in the moment. But the letting, what's the language again? You just said it, Shana. I'm just blanking. what are we on? Hour what of fasting? What? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Let them and let me. It's been my vocabulary. Yes. And so let them and let me, right? If you're also in that context, it's also about they can rail. That person can rail and can say, this is a map of whatever. You are, trust me, because some of my stuff goes public or viral, I get these responses sometimes that are like, I'm the Antichrist. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I could be talking, the sky is blue. Well, you're a Jew, you're bad. Like, it doesn't matter. I could be saying peace to the entire world, and, well, it doesn't really count for you because you're a Jew, so it doesn't, that's not. But that's, like, that happens. So I have to let them, because I still have to be good for me. In order to be good for me, I have to be, that makes me work for everybody else, and that makes me a better servant leader in that way. And that's really important. You've had your hand up for a long time. Oh, you have your mic? He's got his mic already. He's ready to go. I got you. Go ahead, Mitch.
No, I mean, and now it's like, okay, let me process it through the 3 or 4 after. But no.
Yeah, 2 more after, and then I'm gonna close it. I'll stay here for a few more minutes for questions after the last 2. But I don't want to cross over because our stream can't cross over either. It has to go back to contemporary confessions. Go ahead.
So my name is Rich Labano. I know a lot of you already. And I think my question kind of gets into a little bit of what the previous question about, the necklace that's Palestine, not Israel, and those are the words that we're choosing, because, there is a part there of, okay, well, aren't I expected to have some sort of response? Not a reaction, but some sort of thought-out response. And when